and still apologize because we are going to get to the 8:30 mark at some point. But we do understand that there's an issue this morning, I hear, with the parking garage with only one gate working and limited parking spaces. So thank you all again for your continued patience. And just want to welcome everyone as we continue to move forward the work. I think a lot of good moving pieces are going on. We definitely know that we have opportunities for growth. So I appreciate those who continue to express those opportunities so that we can be a better and stronger council. Also, just a reminder that this is May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And as you all know, I'm a huge proponent of you taking care of yourselves and doing those things that you need to do, because we know this life is heavy. There are many things that are going on within our society as well as with people's personal lives. So please make sure that you are just taking an opportunity to do what you need to do to care for yourself so that we can be the best that we need to be for the folks that are experiencing homelessness and that we are helping, and not being that grouchy, mean coworker just because we aren't handling our own stuff. So just want to remind us of that, and also to be mindful of the people who we are serving who may not have the best access to mental health, and how can we be better advocates for that and connecting people with the resources that are needed. So as always, we appreciate the hard work that is going on. April, just to let you all know, April is at a conference. So as you all will see on the agenda, someone else will be giving her report. Renee has a board meeting today with her board at the same time, so she is unable to be here. And then we will just continue and proceed as we normally do. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and move forward with our welcome. I'm sorry, I just did the welcome, you all, with the attendance. And so Stephen Handy. And also, as we're doing the roll call, if you have any conflicts of interest, please express it at the time that your name is called. Ryan Lampa, Deidre Childress. Thank you. Alex Smith, Beth Shin.
Flicks.
Catherine Knowles. And thank you, Beth, for that. Please remember to use the microphones, and I'm hopeful we are recording this. So it is being recorded so that we can capture your comments. Please speak into the mic. Give Hannah a second to be able to turn the mic on. Deanna Allen Robb, Jaha Martin, I'm present, no conflicts. Kenitha Patterson.
Present, no conflicts.
Amber Ellis. Sheila Decker.
Present, no conflicts.
Tracy Pekovich.
Present, no conflicts.
Councilwoman Toombs.
Present.
Councilwoman Evans. Councilwoman Sepulveda.
Present, no conflicts.
Will Conley.
Present. Park Center has a contract with Metro and one with MDHA too.
Thank you. Waddell Wright. Laura Ferguson Mims.
Present, no conflict.
Vicky Batcher.
Present, no conflicts.
Wendell Seagroves. Jeff Gibson.
Present. I serve on the board at Room in the Inn.
Thank you. Tom Turner. Treva Gilligan. All right, thank you all so much. At this time, we want to make sure that we take time to remember those who have lost their lives in the month of April that are experiencing homelessness. And so I will read those names and also ask that we just observe a moment of silence after the names are read. Adam Woods, Timothy Wayne Hutcherson, Sarah McAllister, Jeffrey Irons, Mark Dodd, Gary Lucas, Connie Dickerson, James Pinkert, and Benjamin Sterling. If we could just take a moment to remember these lives. Thank you all so much. Moving forward in the agenda, we have our, you should have in receipt, the April 2023 HPC meeting minutes. If you could review those, and if you see any noted corrections, you can let us know and we will get those corrected. Are there any corrections noted with the meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, we will move forward with our report from MHED. In lieu of April, Hannah will be providing that report.
Hi, everybody. I'm April today. Our first update is, excitingly, we have hired a lot of new staff since the Homelessness Planning Council. We have 3 new outreach coordinators. I don't think any of them are here, but we have Jenny, who is a new landlord engagement coordinator. Now you have to wave or something. Yay. And we have Bill, who is our new grants coordinator. And we've been trying to hire a grants coordinator for about 2 years, so that one's very exciting. Additionally, there's several open positions right now as we prepare for the new Office of Homeless Services that starts on July 1st, so there are some open right now. We have the encampment prioritization team, that community team that's been evaluating the camps, met last week and is meeting again later today to talk about assessing additional camps. The coordinated entry team has a big housing choice voucher push, trying to lease up all of our community's emergency housing vouchers and shelter plus care vouchers. As of this morning, our emergency housing voucher utilization rate is up to 66%, so that is exciting. This past weekend, the Strategic Plan Committee, this isn't really an MHIT update, maybe it's just an update for you guys. The Strategic Plan Committee met on Saturday and made a lot of progress. We're feeling good, and I think we should have an additional plan back to this committee by the next meeting. And what else do I have on here? Oh, the $50 million. I think some of these updates may have been given before, but the ARP allocation, the $9 million in support services is being awarded to 6 agencies, 2 who are offering comprehensive community-based client-focused services and 4 specialized services. And I think those contracts will be going before Metro Council sometime soon in the month of May. So that's getting off the ground hopefully by June. And the $25 million in permanent supportive housing gap financing. The first RFP awarded 5 developers with about $10.1 million for 63 units of permanent supportive housing. So that's also very exciting. And those are my MHIT updates for today.
Thank you so much. We will move forward with the collaborative applicant report by Susie.
Could you give me a couple of minutes? I'm sorry for being late. The parking was devilish downstairs. I just want to kind of collect my thoughts.
Absolutely. So we will come back to Susie and move forward to Hannah with our HMIS monthly data report. She's back up.
I'm back. All right, here is our monthly report for this month. 1,687 people experiencing homelessness were housed for over the past 12 months. This is a 15% decrease from the previous year. So one thing I highlighted on here is that that number continues to decrease every month by more and more, which is a concern. This 15% decrease represents 306 fewer people being housed than were housed the previous year, for some context there. 157 people were housed in April. And one highlight that is a good thing, considering that we know that over half of the population we see experiencing homelessness in Nashville is Black. 61% of the people who were housed were Black. And the other thing I wanted to highlight this month is that we had a really good month for leasing up Section 8 vouchers, housing choice vouchers. 30 people exited to permanent housing with a housing choice voucher in April, which is the biggest month that we've had for that, I think, since we started doing this report. Normally it's like 12. So it's a lot more than usual, reflective of our coordinated entry team push to use a lot more of those vouchers and utilize every resource in our community. And that's a really good permanent resource for people exiting homelessness. So that's very exciting.
All right, thank you, Hannah. So we will move forward with the announcement. Everyone has finally, we are ready to do the MHEAD Director position update, and that will be provided by Ms. Sally Lott.
Hello, good morning. I'm also April today. I know April wishes she could be here in person, but I am very honored to read her acceptance letter of the position of director to you all. So yes, this is April's letter. It is with great honor that I accept your offer to be the very first director of the Office of Homeless Services. I look forward to leading Nashville with a local voice and addressing homelessness for Nashville neighbors. It has been my privilege to participate in collaborative leadership for over 25 years, and I am honored to leverage the relationships I have built during my professional career. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to lead such a dynamic team while collaborating with community partners and networking with other departments within the Metro government. Yet this is not about us. Holding true to service fidelity while seeking innovative approaches, I am dedicated to deploying high-quality, creative, life-saving measures to assist our unhoused Nashville neighbors, because our Nashville neighbors should not endure the pressure of experiencing life without a home. On May 4th, 2023, I accepted the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County Director of the Office of Homeless Services position. Woo! Editorial note. Woo! Having a dedicated office to address homeless services in Metro government with a dedicated budget will allow for systems capacity building in both Metro government and our faithful community partners, which speaks volumes to the fortitude of Mayor John Cooper and our elite Metro Council members. As I prepare to lead such a vital department, it is not lost on me as an African-American female the honor and prestige of serving in such a meaningful and impactful role. Unfortunately, I am not present to share my excitement in person, as I am in Washington, D.C., presenting to potential policymakers eager to understand their role in the homeless sector. The next essential steps for the Office of Homeless Services includes the following: continuing to build and create critical functions in our department, acquiring vital team members, focusing on a community strategy while building capacity, continuing to deploy Housing First funds to meet the needs of the most vulnerable, devising a clear communication plan highlighting a data-driven response, and as a Housing First city, reviewing, assessing, and aligning community priorities for future resources. It is my hope that with this new era and focus on reducing homelessness, it will ignite renewed collaboration and harmony between all united in this effort to do what's best for our unhoused neighbors. Thank you once more for this opportunity. I look forward to the road ahead. Many blessings, April Calvin, Director of the Office of Homeless Services.
All right, thank you so much, and congratulations to April. We look forward to continuing this work and just moving along as a community. So is Ginger, I didn't see Ginger. Oh. I forget she works in this building, so they got secret entries. All right, the mayor's office report by Ginger.
I snuck in the side door. Real quickly, the only thing I wanted to mention, and the council members will know this, is the budget process is beginning. So over the course of the next month or so, the Metro Council will be looking at the Metro budget. The budget will have the standalone Office of Homeless Services, so we're really excited about that. And I believe it includes some additional positions beyond what you've already heard about. So we're very excited about that and the transition work to a standalone office. And that's really all the update I have.
All right, any questions about anything so far? All right, thank you, Ginger. Susie, are you ready? Okay, we are now going back to the collaborative applicant report by Susie.
Thank you for giving me a breather.
Absolutely.
Am I on? Yep, that's good. Again, thank you for giving me a breather there. My apologies for being late. Two main points that I wanted to make to you guys. The nominating committee met on Monday and developed a slate of candidates. We would like to send out a bio sheet. I'll send that out by the end of today to all of the listserv. So any of you all who might be interested, or any of you who have ideas about good folks who can be considered to sit on the Homelessness Planning Council and be elected by the general membership, or I think the vice mayor appointments are already solid. They're continuing. There are some mayoral appointments as well. So I'll be sending that bio sheet out, and anybody interested, please speak up, send in the bio sheet, and those nominees will be considered. They will be voted on in June, which is not a regularly scheduled meeting. We've gone to every other month, but we'll have to have a called meeting in June to have that vote so that everybody can be in place by the 1st of July when the Office of Homeless Services opens up. HUD did 2 debriefings of both the unsheltered NOFO, or the special NOFO called SNOFO, yesterday, and did the debriefing of scores for the regular competition on the 20th of April, I think. So lots of details in those debriefings. They send out the local score, not for all of the elements, but for key elements that HUD considers are areas of emphasis. Here are the takeaways that I got from both of those debriefings. In the unsheltered NOFO yesterday, Hannah pointed this out, we were less than 2 points away from a score that might have earned us some money, and that was even without the bonus points that we would not have gotten regardless, because we just don't have a high number, or as high a number, of unsheltered homeless people out there. So valiant effort. We were so close, and it's disappointing that we were that close, but also exciting that we had scored that high. So some strengths to look at in that application for sure. What else? In terms of the regular competition, in both of these debriefings, HUD did announce that they probably will drop this year's NOFO in the next few weeks, which is, anyway, it's always scary when it's around the corner. There will be a second NOFO after the regular one is all over, and that will be for an exciting opportunity to apply for permanent supportive housing development costs. That includes acquisition, rehab, new construction, some operating costs. It's not as much as they'll have in the regular round, so it will be pretty competitive. But I'll try and send an alert out there, because there are not as many developers as we need, and it would be great to sort of solicit some interest early on so that some of those folks out there can be alerted and begin to develop some project ideas. One of the trends that HUD mentioned yesterday was integrating the continuum of care funding with available vouchers in Nashville, so that connection with MDHA is going to have to continue to be very strong. They don't expect any more of the unsheltered NOFO money to come around again. Next steps locally, I think we'll try and convene a number of folks who are good writers and good analysts to look at both of the applications that were submitted last year and identify our strengths that we want to kind of build on, but also to shore up some of the weaknesses so that we can be pretty strategic in developing this year's application. The Performance Evaluation Committee is meeting next Wednesday at 4 at MDHA, and they have been working on, I've been getting some help from Hannah about slightly revising the local scoring tool and areas of emphasis on that spreadsheet, and then we're developing a reallocation policies and procedures document that is built on Austin's model. I think that's it. If there's anything else, I'll probably send it out via the listserv. Thanks.
All All right, so next on the agenda, moving forward to our new business. As you all know, at our last April Homeless Planning Council meeting, an ad hoc committee was voted for approval by the HPC that we would form an ad hoc committee to pretty much look at what are some of the key responsibilities of the collaborative applicant, HMIS lead, and this came out of the March Continuum of Care General Body meeting at a request that this committee be formed. And so the committee has been formed. You have that information before you, as well as what the charge of the ad hoc committee is and the tasks. And at this point, these are the individuals that have expressed interest in serving. As chairman, we went ahead, and the executive committee, we're happy to reach out. So the next step will be that these committee members will be reached out to see if they are still interested in serving, and if so, then they will move forward. We do have chairmen who have been appointed by the HPC chairman and executive committee, which is Giovanni Aco, Dee Dee Bird, and Steve Ryder. And so they will be connecting with the ad hoc committee and moving forward with these designated tasks. Just wanted to keep you all updated that it is in motion. And so that there will be more information to follow, and any questions related to that. All right, thank you so much. Moving forward, back to Susie for our annual point in time count update.
Do you have any of those numbers? Okay. Yeah, I was not prepared for that one. I think we can probably send out the numbers if you haven't seen them already. We did experience an 11% increase. Major takeaways in terms of looking at those numbers from the data committee were the number of homeless families is, as usual, quite low, but when you look at the families, there are Black families are overrepresented. When you look at the total single males who are white, are inhabiting the encampments more than Blacks, but in the overall complexion of homelessness is people of color overrepresented. Whatever, anything else, Hannah? Hannah's been very
I pulled up the numbers. I can read them if we want.
Cool, great, thank you.
So the total point in time count was 2,129 people. This was on January 26th of this year. So that was an increase of 11% versus in 2022. There were 590 unsheltered people this year, which is a decrease of 44 fewer unsheltered people. And there were 1,539 sheltered people, which is an increase of 257 sheltered people. One important point on the big increase in the sheltered population is that the Metro cold weather shelter was open on the night of the point in time count, and that had about 150 people that night. 95% of the households were single individuals. And of the total count, 67% were men, 45% were Black or African American, and 5% were Hispanic. And then I have a couple more facts about the unsheltered population specifically. 42% of the unsheltered population were staying in encampments. That was the biggest type of location that people were in. And 21% were in streets or sidewalks, which was the second biggest location. 20% of unsheltered people reported having pets with them, which is a lot. 48% of unsheltered people reported having a serious mental illness, and 50% reported having substance use disorder, which is a really big increase over last year when that was like 30-something%. 17% of unsheltered people reported fleeing domestic violence, and 62% of unsheltered people were experiencing chronic homelessness. And I'll make sure we send out all of the data later.
The press release just came out last Friday, so it's now public. It always sort of takes a little while before the machines get the data out to the press and to the public. Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Yes, Ms. Robb.
Good morning. It's a lot of numbers, and I do well when I can actually see the numbers and absorb them, but just a couple of questions. I think going back to our HMIS data report and 306 fewer people being housed, kind of what's the driver behind that decrease of people being housed? And if you could remind me just at a pretty high level, and again, I'll have more questions when I actually get a chance to see the report. So how are we using the point in time count to inform our strategies and funding moving forward?
Well, number one, the count is required by HUD, so we do that every year. We look at some of these increases. It's easy to quantify the increases, decreases, trends, but it's a little bit more difficult to analyze why those numbers might be up or down. As Hannah mentioned, the emergency or the extreme weather shelter was open that night, and it's a whole lot easier to count folks when they are sheltered than the teams that are going out to scour the whole county. We do look at these numbers. It is a snapshot, and it's difficult to tell whether over a year those same things would continue to recur. I'm hoping that the data committee might be able to put its arms around an annualized figure of homelessness to give us just a much better view of the issue. There are ways to extrapolate via using those numbers and looking at some of the HMIS numbers, and then come up with an estimate that would give us a bit better and more well-rounded number and statistics to plan on. So it's always difficult to convince the community when they hear that one-night number that the issue is really so much bigger than that snapshot. And it always seems to diminish the issues that are faced by these folks who don't have housing, to me.
I'll also add, this year when we did the unsheltered count, we asked for people who are willing to share their names with us. So we've then done a comparison with our data in HMIS, so we can see of the people who are counted outside, how many of them do we already know about and are working with through like a street outreach program. And that was just a little over half were in HMIS. So that's been helpful information that we're going to be using with like our community outreach organizations to talk about outreach coverage, and we can see which areas we had low coverage in and which areas we were doing better in, so we can try to improve that to make sure people are getting access to services.
And there were maybe half of the folks that were found outside were interviewed and surveyed, and that data is what compiled the statistics that Hannah's just reading from. So that's been an exciting development over the last few years when the surveys are collecting real substantial data from some of these folks who are willing to respond to the survey, whereas before it was the folks outside were just noted as being outside, and that data is richer than it has been before. So that can help in planning too.
Beth Shin and then Councilwoman Sepulveda.
So a couple of years ago, using a tool developed by or used by HUD, Stella, the data committee determined that we needed roughly 17,000 units of housing over a 5-year period to house the folks that are unhoused in our community. And over the last year, we have housed fewer than we see on a one-night count. There are roughly 4 times as many people experiencing homelessness that we can count over a 3-year period. And if we figure that we also miss people, as Hannah has just shown, it might be a figure that's 8 times as high. We're just not housing people at the rate that folks are entering homelessness in our community. And so we need to both ramp up our housing efforts and also try to do things with our broader city council to stop as many people entering homelessness. And I think the data committee will talk more about that next month.
Councilwoman Sepulveda and then Councilwoman Evans.
Thank you. I have several questions. I agree. It would be great to have those numbers before us. So the 11% increase, is that correct? 11% increase from last year. And I had a similar question to the first one as to the reasoning behind that. So far, the only thing I heard was there were more people in the shelter that night. And so I guess the data committee would give us a better understanding of it. But I also wanted to know the geographical locations. Is that included in the report as well?
So we have, the pit count is done in groups of teams that have areas of Davidson County. So we can send like a map that shows the number of people in each area of Davidson County, if that's helpful.
Do you have those numbers before you write down?
Not at this moment, but, I can send them today.
Yeah, that would be helpful as well. And then going back a little bit, the housing aspect of it, since we are housing people at a far less rate than we have been in the past. I think I missed a bit of the report. The $50 million that was approved in ARP funding, a percentage of that was for developers to try and partner and build housing. What was the report on that?
So 25 million of that was for developers to help build housing. I believe 5 developers have been awarded a little over $10 million so far, and there's going to be 63 units of permanent supportive housing attached to that.
And we're having trouble finding developers willing to...
I can't speak to that, but maybe Treva can help us out.
Good morning, Treva Gilligan with MDHA. Actually, I don't think we will. We're in the process of getting Metro Finance's approval to go ahead and issue a second round of the RFP, and I would expect that all of it would be taken. That should be coming out hopefully next week, and we're kind of going to leave it open-ended for more developers. Hopefully, it was kind of a short turnaround last time. We're going to leave it open till the end of September, and we'll review applications as they're submitted.
Right, thank you. And then the demographics, can you read that again real quick?
Sure. Let me pull it up. And we also, oh, great. Ginger made copies of the infographics, so she's passing them out. So some of the numbers will be in front of you now. 67% of the people counted were men, 45% were Black or African American, and 5% were Hispanic or Latino. There's more demographics available. That's just what's on this infographic that I was able to read. But if you want to know more breakdowns along those lines, I can share that as well.
Great, thank you. I guess this would be a good time to say I was having a meeting yesterday with the painters union here, and they're in the back. And they were bringing up some concerns about workers that are being brought into the city by contractors, and a lot of them end up homeless. And so I guess who would be a great person to connect them to, because we are seeing some troubling trends in this city. And I just want us to have a picture of what's going on in the immigrant community at the moment.
I'm going to say probably a lot of people would be helpful to connect to. What union did you say it was? I couldn't quite hear.
The Painters Union.
Painters? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to let April know that for a start for her tips. And I'll also say figuring out how we can get them connected to coordinated entry through Sally would be the next best step.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can just, if you want to reach out to me directly, I can help kind of make some connections. I will say, coordinated entry, we're working on our relationship with Casa Azafran in terms of doing some outreach to the immigrant population, but that is an area too where we can absolutely grow and want to know where those gaps are. So would love to talk more.
Yeah, and I guess this is a good time to also bring up that I had a bit of an issue some time ago, and April is aware of this, and Renee is aware of this, with coordinated entry and making sure that we are acutely aware when processing people through coordinated entry that don't speak English, and being mindful and respectful, because that was a problem before. And I know that human relations is taking steps, appropriate steps, and people are being retrained. But I think that there needs to be an overall awareness of the gaps that we have in our programming at the moment.
Absolutely.
I know Councilwoman Evans was next, but this is just a good reminder that one of the things is that our Diversity and Equity Committee, there is a race problem in this city. And as you see with the numbers, that there is a disconnect at times between providers and those experiencing homelessness. And so I think that as we move forward, part of the work that we will need to do is how are we making sure people are operating out of an equity lens so that we are sensitive to those needs. So Councilwoman Evans.
Thank you. I had, I guess, a couple questions. One, I know that, we've added more resources to Homeless Impact Division. And I know, for instance, in my part of town, we have Lakeisha, who is our outreach coordinator. And I guess previously, whenever I would become aware of somebody experiencing homelessness in my area, I would usually send in an email to April and kind of say, hey, this is where I know this person is sleeping. And so I guess I wanted to know, in advance of next year's count, what is the best way to communicate when we learn about people? Is it through Hub and documenting it that way? Like, for instance, I know that MNPD also tracks encampments and things like that. So just wanted to get some clarification in anticipation of the next one.
Absolutely. I'll speak to that. I think that doing the hub request is the best way. Those are all filtered to our outreach team, and it helps them keep track internally. And then there's like a response system and things like that. So I think that's the best way in terms of record keeping to make those requests.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And then my other question, I wanted to go back to what Dr. Shin was speaking about related to housing. And I know it's been a little while since we've heard from Angie Hubbard talking about her effort, and like in last night's mayoral forum, the reference to using Metro-owned property to build housing, it was referenced several times. And so I wanted to know if we could, before the end of the term, have Angie come back and speak to this group on how things have progressed with her. Thank you.
We will note that. Alex, is that your hand up? Go ahead.
Couple of things. One, I like what I see here when it comes to the point and time count and these numbers. I do. Because as a person that used to be a part of this, where I had to be counted, I understand the difficulty of it. Let's please be mindful of a couple things. The people that was counted, they wanted to be counted. There's probably 25% of people that's still out there right now that you didn't count because they didn't want to be found. We have done good so far, and this is just me personally talking. I'm not judging anybody when I say this. We have done very well so far to keep giving olive branches to try to mend the broken road that we used to be on, especially with the homeless community. I understand if you see homeless people, you kind of want to report the area like, hey, there's some people camping here and stuff like that. But you're really invading their privacy unless they come up to you and ask them for help. You're exposing them. Maybe they don't want to be found. Maybe they want to run away from a situation that you never thought about. So be very mindful when you exploit that particular area or put a comment in or say, hey, we might want to look after this particular area. Please be mindful of that. My second thing is, and I've been preaching this for years now, where's the peer support part of this? Where's the people that's supposed to be helping people through these interviews that has been where the people have been to make this an easier process? That's including, people of all different diversity that can speak the language that needs to be spoken to get the proper answers, to put them at ease. Even though they might see you once, twice, 3 times a week steadily, they don't trust you. I mean, let's just be real here. It takes a while, even for anybody. It takes roughly 6 months for a person to literally trust you. And they're looking for that one specific time that you don't come through to destroy everything that you built for them. So please keep that in mind too. And my last point is, have we figured out a way, especially in the court system or in the jailhouse system, how many people that will be getting out, that will be homeless by the appointed time count?
HUD does not consider the folks that are sleeping in institutions to be homeless. I beg to differ. And what we used to count and can still do on the particular night or any given night is through the sheriff's office. They have their, I don't know what the data system is, and they're able to cull for addresses like the streets, the Mission, Matthew 25, homeless shelters, and it is, we'll look at that every year, and I haven't gotten it for this year, but in years past, it has been between 200 and 300 people. My conjecture is if they come into the jail system homeless, they're going to leave homeless. So that is, when we look at the data committee or the entire picture of homelessness, we don't have to adapt to HUD's definition. And I think that part of the picture needs to be better illustrated and highlighted to the community.
Thank you. The reason why I bring that up is the simple fact. Well, when I was on the streets, it was always a pattern. When the weather gets cold and you don't want to be on the streets for 3 or 4 months, you do something to keep you in jail for 3 or 4 months. That pattern hasn't gone away. It happens. So I would personally like to see that data for that included with it, with the paperwork too. But again, like I said, I like the steps that we're taking. We seem to be progressing forward. For a lot of people, it's not as forward as we need to be, but we are on the correct path so far. And as long as we stay on this correct path, we will get everything that we need to get done. So just be patient. Remember, don't expose people unless they come to you. And just be mindful. Like, they're people too. So keep that in mind.
So we will do this comment, and then we will have to move forward in the agenda. So, Mr. Turner.
Good. All right. To add on to the comment there, there's no HUD reason to not include people in the Davidson County Jail in our number?
Reason? Mm-hmm. Yeah, HUD says that they will not be a part of the point in time count. They're not considered homeless if they're living in a publicly funded institution, and the jails would count there. But again, the Planning Council needs to look more broadly than just HUD and the HUD money. So in the great picture of homelessness, that number ought to be highlighted somewhere.
Okay. if we do highlight it, we should highlight it for a prior year too, so that our comparisons are accurate year over year.
Yeah.
But basically HUD doesn't let us do it. Okay. Thanks.
But that data is readily available. They can pull that very quickly. Yep.
All right. Thank you all for such good conversation, and we have noted the feedback. Moving forward to our nominating committee report, Ingrid is unable to be here, so Susie will be giving a brief recap of where the nominating committee is. This is not the final report, but in the beginning stages for our next HPC board.
I think I basically covered the details in my report earlier, but please do consider yourself or other folks that you think would be productive members of the Planning Council to submit their interest. We have bio sheets that I'll be sending out later on today, and complete one of those. Again, the vote will be at a called meeting in June on the third Thursday.
All right. Thank you so much. So when we think about ways to participate, we've heard that an RFP will be dropping for developers. Oftentimes I hear questions, which is great, about how are we going to get housing? How are we going to get housing? Well, all of us are connected to different social organizations and other communities. And so I am hopeful that each of you are having these conversations in your circles about, hey, do you know we have these programs and this is why it would be beneficial? Are you aware of what the landlord incentives are so that you're able to readily share those incentives with folks who have properties in your faith communities, in your civic organizations, whatever things that you are connected with? And so I know previously information was sent out how people could become a Metro vendor, and usually when those RFPs drop, they come through Susie's listserv. So when we're looking at ways, I think we have to begin looking at collectively how we solve this problem, and not just a who do I direct this to, because all of us are in situations where we can look at ways that we are contributing. And another way is, how are we recruiting people for the board? And when we look at the diversity of that, are we looking at business owners? Are we looking at the property owners? And so that people become aware of what are some of these things. So just keep those things in mind as you all are receiving these emails. I know we get lots of emails, but we ask that you just take time to read those and distribute them as appropriate. And so moving forward to our next HPC ad hoc committee. This committee was formed. I'll let Dr. Ferguson Mims really talk about that, but it is separate from the committee we just talked about.
Good morning. You may recall that this committee was formed to review and or investigate the resignations that have transpired over the past 2 years. So I've typed a report. My bifocals are not quite bifocaling today, but I'm going to just read it into the record, and then we'll see if there's any discussion. The ad hoc committee to examine resignations met on May 8th, 2023. Members reviewed 4 resignation emails from former HPC members. Of the 4 emails, 2 individuals cited personal issues as the reason for their resignation. 2 indicated concern with HPC as the reason for their resignation. The 2 resignations that indicated HPC concerns span 2 different executive directors and HPC chairs. With that foundational information, the committee determined their time would be best spent creating a formalized process or system to receive feedback regarding resignations moving forward. Below, you will see the draft HPC exit interview questions. And we can't take credit from creating these. We didn't feel a need to reinvent the wheel. We pulled them primarily from board source. Did HPC onboarding provide an opportunity for you to understand the organization's mission and how you could best contribute to that mission? Please explain. Did the board spend its time on the right things? Examples: generative discussion, strategic thinking and planning, finance, risk assessment, policy oversight, etc. Would you like to stay involved in the core purpose of the HPC? How well did you feel your contributions to the board were recognized and appreciated? How well did you feel you were listened to and respected in meetings? And what about your board service could have been improved? So it's our recommendation that this be a standard exit survey that's sent to anyone that resigns from HPC, regardless of the reason stated in their letter and or email. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilwoman Sepulveda?
Thank you, and thank you to the ad hoc committee for convening and looking into this. I guess I have some concerns and questions. I think that the exit survey is great. I think that's a great idea, and I think these questions are good. I guess my concern is what happens after receiving these responses, right? If there is anything of concern, like how is that going to be addressed? I think feedback is great, but if nothing comes out of the feedback, if there is no learning from the feedback, then what was the point? I guess my second question is, does leadership intend to approach things the same way? Will employers be approached from committee members, is my question.
So I think we felt the first step was to collect the data and then determine how we will utilize those data points. We did not see a pattern in the resignations that were submitted, but having an objective standard that everyone responds to would allow us the opportunity to see the variance in responses. Are we seeing a pattern of individuals indicating that they feel they were disrespected in some manner? Are we seeing a pattern of people feeling like their orientation or onboarding didn't appropriately prepare them to actively engage in the HPC? We did not discuss HPC members meeting with employers. So I think that's outside of the discussions that happened in our deliberations.
Well, then I would say that should have happened, is what I would have liked to have seen happen. And I think many people would have liked to have seen address. I think it's great that we'll collect the data, and I am happy, right, that it's not a pattern that you all saw. I think that once is enough. So my question still remains, is that the way that we plan to approach things?
Thank you, Councilwoman Sepulveda. I'm consulting with Metro Legal. There was an actual report and rendering about that. I believe there was another council person that actually filed that actual report. We apologize, it has not been sent in advance. So I am consulting with Metro Legal in terms of what can be shared related to that. But that report will directly address your question. So it is not being ignored. I am just waiting to see what parameters I have with that.
Great. Thank you so much.
It may be provided very, very shortly.
Okay, we will see about getting that together, and possibly if it will not be out by this meeting, we will address it at the next meeting. But we did have an outside legal representation that has given very clear recommendations and also findings pertaining to what it is that you are alleging. So that feedback will be given and provided. I'm sorry, I did not see who it was who had the question. Ms. Patterson.
Good morning. I was just wondering, along the lines of this follow-up, I would say, regarding the ad hoc committee, I just want to know how do we get things to you all prior to it being such a big issue? What is that process? What is a grievance process? I don't think that is something that's readily available. So therefore, when things happen, people start to spill out everything that is there, that is festering, that is boiling. And to avoid all that, to be on the same page and transparent, how do we go about communicating with you without it being the sundown law, or you know what I mean, like that type of thing? Where do we go is what I'm asking.
So one thing is the thing that I would encourage everyone to initially go to is the HPC charter. As part of what you all have been in receipt of that the HUD Technical Assistance has recommended is that we do strengthen our charter to create stronger bylaws that specify, I think, more procedural processes, such as even Councilwoman Sepulveda has talked about. And so we are in the process of doing that. I think initially there was a little bit of resistance when it was brought up. And so now it's been, more people are saying, yes, we need this. And so we are working on that. But I will say that, and so when you think about what are those questions, what would be in other cities and bylaws that have been presented to you all through email, and I think at the last COC meeting, if you review those governance committees oftentimes are those committees that review those things. And so it is the hope that we will provide recommendations such as what has come out of this committee, along with the HUD TA recommendations, and just I will also include my recommendations from sitting in this seat, and then forward those recommendations on to the current governance committee so that they can revamp the charter to include some of those things. And then once that happens, it goes through the process where it will be presented to you all and open for public comment. So that will also be a time that you can give insight and input to how you think those policies and procedures are. But that email was also has been sent out numerous times to you all with the PowerPoint that really talks about and has example bylaws in there. I think it's just the norm. It's called COC 101, I think, for Metro Davidson County. But I would encourage again for us to just be mindful of what those recommendations are. I know sometimes feedback is hard for us to hear, but for us to move and move forward as a community, we want to make sure that those recommendations are in place. So I am. Let me check with Metro Legal to see where we are with the other question. Alex, go ahead, but just know I am listening to Metro Legal, so if you want to comment to the rest of the body, please do.
It's interesting hearing all this, like, maybe something I'm not understanding is, what if it's a personal reason and they don't want to share the information? Why? Maybe they just want to resign. Should that be made public? Because if I wanted to just resign and give no reason why I want to resign, I shouldn't have to give you the reason why I want to resign at all. It's like a job. If something doesn't fit, you can just quit. Yeah, it looks bad, but you got to think about you. So I would say question 7, which should be, was this for personal reasons? Because if it was for personal reasons, then that should be filed under a different level of exiting instead of being kind of grouped together, just personally.
We just, as a courtesy, as you all know, Metro emails and correspondence are public record, but even as a courtesy, before we shared those emails with you all, we did notify folks that those emails would be shared, but you are absolutely right. So we would not be demanding that anyone participate. It would be voluntary. Yes, Dr. Shan.
So people, even if it's for personal reasons, people might have useful things to say in response to those other questions. They could always decline. And you might want to extend that to people who are simply rotating off, as well as people who are resigning. But Councilmember Sepulveda's question about, so once you gather this information, what's going to happen with it, I think still stands. It's important that we learn from it.
Exactly. So that's what I talked about with strengthening the bylaws. So when you again review those in other cities, they typically have a committee that reviews those concerns and have procedures in place. And so I'm hopeful that as a community, we can get there. Any other questions related to that? We're going to move forward in the agenda, and if I get clearance today, we will address it, and if time allows the question, but if not, then I will definitely have it on the agenda for next month to address Councilwoman Sepulveda's question. So, Consumer Advisory Board public comment, Ms. Decker.
Good morning. We received one public comment through email, and we received 2 comments in regard to encampments that were forwarded to MHED for them to address those commenters directly. And that's it.
Thank you for that. Dr. Shan.
Comment? Do we want to talk about the content of that public comment?
I'm actually trying to find the public comment.
I do not see it listed in the packet. It was emailed to MHED on Monday.
Yeah, it was emailed out. And I would say whatever people may feel about the tone of the comment, the central point is an important one. That we really haven't taken on the challenge of housing the numbers of people that we need to house in Davidson County, and that would be a useful topic for discussion. Perhaps the Data Committee report next month will facilitate that.
Thank you for that. And we will make sure that that comment is provided back out to the committee, but it was in reference to making sure that we have a committee that's really looking at more so development and also funding for housing, which I do know excuse me, that Susie addressed earlier as well, and that's also in the report that Stacy has provided. So I don't think it's new information, but I do think we have to be mindful, and I think we've addressed that. We do need to look at, and that was part of what I was suggesting as we look at diversifying the board. Who are we bringing to the board that can help us meet some of these things that we have concerns, express concern about? So honestly, when the other public comments come in that are not related to us and that are more program, we don't receive those. So I don't have a copy of that. And most of us were in receipt of the other public comments. So yes, Ms. Patterson.
I'm fighting with this microphone, sorry. So I want to kind of go back to what Alex said earlier about peer support. So I feel like the CAB is that. So I need to know, why is it paused? Why is it not active? Why is it just sitting there? And why are we not doing the work?
That is an excellent question, and that has been my question. And so we are working on developing the CAB. Previously, from the report of that chairman who stepped down, which is, again, people have things and reasons why, is that the CAB was not as interested in developing some of the I would say, structure around that committee. And so now that we are moving to a new office and more staffing is in place, we are hopeful to also assign a staff person to help with that development, because there are some just communication, administrative stuff that we want to make sure is given as a support to you all, not to run the committee, but to develop that. And we are also looking at, recruiting other people with lived experience to serve on that committee. So am I hearing that you're interested in possibly being a leader on that?
Please, I've said that and expressed that many times before.
Okay.
And it has been ignored, unfortunately, because that's the most important thing that we have, and it's really the nucleus of this whole COC. And it's willing people to be on the cab, so I don't feel like that's an excuse.
Okay.
That is people unwilling, because that's not true. We've been begging for the cab. And like I said, you have people willing to be in that role, and like it was not extended to even have our opinion on. We just had our first meeting not too long ago, before the step down, and then there was nothing. It just dissipated. So again, how do we get grievances to people of what's going on behind the scenes so that it's not these type of situations or people having to call people out of their names because something so important is paused? That should be the main thing, like popping right now, for lack of better words. You know what I mean? So it's just so disheartening and upsetting to be a person with lived experience, see all the things that are transpiring behind the scenes, all the ways that we are let down as a Section 8 voucher holder. I see all of the loops that happen that prevent a person. We just witnessed, I'm the representative of a Tennessee statewide resident council. A lady took over her daughter's case, was fighting for a voucher, and she ended up dying after her daughter waiting on a voucher. That should not be. It's health care for housing. So this is why it's so important, and the work is not being done. We're hearing that all throughout what we've been talking about. So a person is here ready to step up and be in that position to be trained. I'm already volunteering everything that I do. So, I mean, it's not being any excuse for it not to go forth, because it's willing people to step up and do it.
Thank you for that. It is noted, and we will be in touch. Ms. Decker.
Good morning. As I am the one who stepped down as the chair from the Consumer Advisory Board, I just wanted to share what my thoughts were at that time. I accepted a full-time position, and I was also going through several health issues that I am still trying to rectify. So I did not have the mental capacity to put into building that group the way it really needs to be built. I am very passionate about that group getting off the ground, but I have always stated I never want to waste any time of the people who do put themselves out there to show up at those meetings. Because if we do not have an agenda and we do not have things to work on, then we are bringing everyone together for a show. And that's never something I wanted to be a part of. So I have asked for procedures and guidelines on how to operate, because it is not fair for us to take time, energy, money from people to come and show up at these meetings and then us not have anything to really work on that is substantial. So I'm sorry that, that's the way it ended. And I also expressed that I was still willing to be a part of the CAB with someone else leading the charge, because working 50 hours a week and having health issues, I just could not work and put myself out there, and I had to think about myself. But I am very willing, and I know we all have people that are willing to step up to the plate. We do need someone to take charge on building procedures and guidelines on how the CAB should operate.
So thank you. So I will say that's been part of it. I didn't want to disclose without her wanting to share what she wanted to share. We have recently been pulling your emails to remember what that, so to look at that. And so I guess for us, it's sometimes a little bit, we're trying to figure out as well how to honor everyone's experience. And so sometimes even folks with lived experiences have different viewpoints. And so we have recently pulled that information, and that's what I was talking about about and trying to get some things established before just pulling the board back together. But I have noted that you are interested in leadership. So when we are able to, and also as a notation, we will see what staff person can be assigned to that and begin that process. So being able to hear both sides, and I appreciate the service and the willingness to do so. So yes, Ms. Patterson.
I'm sorry, and I don't want to be insensitive to her having something going on. I'm saying is we met together, we came together, and we should have been able to have the option to be that support that she needed. We should have been able to go from there because that started and it not just be dropped. Not saying that's any fault of Ms. Decker at all. I understand that. I'm a mother of 5 children, so I'm very busy. I just lost 2 parents within a 6-month span from hospice care. So, I mean, and I think that's something that's huge too. We need to be looking out for each other instead of it being this tension and grim and division that it is. And I just feel like it was not considered because of the people that were left under the leadership were people of lived experience. So, of course, they're not capable of producing what we need to, but we know what's going on the ground. So we're going to produce very valuable information and what needs to be going forth in the community, just like how Alex just mentioned about, okay, people with recidivism, how are they getting housed when they get out? It's something different from when you're locked up and you are in a house or shelter situation, but when you're out, you are no longer in that safe place or dwelling. So it's a lot, and we have the answers and a lot of the solutions, and we're just sitting idle and not being utilized. So it's kind of what's the point of having a lived experience if you're not going to use it or trust it or respect it? So I just had to make that clear. I'm not saying totally respect that you had something going on. It's just the fact that we were not considered.
All right, thank you. So look, I
To say
Go
that
ahead.
I spent almost 3 years trying to build a cab. And at that point, I just wasn't able to continue. So it wasn't for lack of wanting, but I hope that in this conversation, I know. I just hope in this conversation that we can, work to try and build up the cab because it really is important.
Okay. Yes, Alex. Very quickly, please, because we are running out of time.
I completely understand. As a member of the CAB, if we have someone that works with us to complete this and make it run like it should run with the people that is available, we don't need someone that's going to be around for only 6 months. We need someone that's going to be steadfast and with us through this whole entire process to build us up as strong as possible. And also, we, as the CAB members, should have an open door policy for others to join us. That's what kind of hindered us before, when it was just only 3 of us representing until you came along. It was just us 3. And with us 3, my background's different, Vicky's background's different, Sheila's background's different. I'm like the star player. You give me the play, I run it, I do what I need to do. But we need more structure because we need more people. And since we don't have more people, and nothing against the women that's a part of the CAB, but I'm the only solo guy. I respect all their opinion, but you don't understand how hard it is for me not to say my opinion and not try to offend. Because a lot of times when I say things, it can come out very aggressive, but it's not aggressive, it's very passionate. It's very like, hey, we need to wake up from this, or we need to do this. So if it's possible for us to have someone every step of the way and have an open door policy for others that's outside of the HPC, that's outside of the COC, to join us, to make us the voice that we need to be. I think that will be very helpful.
All of that has been noted, and we will move forward with those noted suggestions. And so to come back to Councilwoman Sepulveda's question, we will get that report out to the HPC. I think I want you all to have time to read it. It was addressed to the mayor's office, so we had to get permission for that. And then with that, it will entail what, because it's specific, it's not a secret at this point, it is specific to a complaint about addressing employers. And so there is an outside, it will address all of that in detail. And then what we will do is have discussion at our next meeting with that. And at the end, it's the same recommendation I've been saying, HUD TA has been saying, is that we need to strengthen our bylaws. And so that information will be sent out to you all. And I don't want to just rush it and not have the time for the conversation. So are we good with that? All right. I appreciate you all's patience. We will now move forward to our story of progress, which I will be providing as part of what I do full time. So many of you may or may not know, I work at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and I work with veterans that are experiencing homelessness. And so one of the things is that I have often heard, and I know that most people, there are lots of complaints at times that you hear and see on the news about veterans. But what I have said and continue to say, one of the things I do think, and we definitely have room for improvement, but that I think we have done well is with the passing around 2008 by Congress to create permanent supportive housing through our HUD-VASH voucher. Our programs, we work in we have what we call our health care for homeless veterans that goes into the prisons before our veterans are released so that we can look at how do we connect them with services. We have a Veterans Justice Outreach Program that is specific to our Veterans Court to help those with nonviolent offenses who may be battling substance use disorder or certain, mental health disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder. We have peer supports. We have licensed clinical social workers. We have RNs. We have nurse practitioners. We have a street psychiatrist. And so all of those services are what we put into place to not just house our veterans, but to ensure their success. So when I hear all of these comments, I'm aware of how it looks and how it works and how it can come together. As you all know, I think it was around October of last year, we received from Built for Zero, which a team of us have been working towards and with, which is a national organization that looks at communities and how to impact and reduce homelessness. And so in decreasing and eliminating veteran homelessness has been a goal for us for a while. And so we have achieved a quality by name list. We have case conferencing. As part of Built for Zero, they came in and purchased an entire apartment complex, as many of you are aware and have seen, Glastonbury Woods. They designated half of those units to be specifically for veterans with HUD-VASH vouchers, and then they have some for market rate value. And so this was a collaboration, obviously, with MDHA to distribute our vouchers, which they continue to do, with Metro Homeless Impact Division for coordinated entry. Oftentimes, you all don't see our reports on your data because we do not receive any COC funding, and we are not considered, a project of this. But just to let you know what some of that success has been through Glastonbury. And so what it is when we were made aware of this, Sally and I and my counterpart, Whitney Riddell, we began looking at what would be the process. So we got with our HUD-VASH team who provides the supportive housing. We also have employment specialists along with our peer support specialists, which we have several, that we worked with on how can we make this work, because we do know when you do these project-based concentrated poverty that times that in helping people be successful. And so today, I just want to share that through this collaboration that we have now housed 23 previously homeless or precariously housed veterans, 21 of those veterans came from our by name list. And so that means that these are veterans that have been identified as are at most risk. One of the things that initially we hit was the income guidelines through the property wasn't really matching what MDHA criteria and definitely not what the federal criteria was for HUD-VASH in terms of income. So we were then able to get that barrier eliminated, which now has decreased what the income level is for our veterans to be able to get there. So we continue to house, and I think sometimes it's so easy for us to be discouraged because at times, Sally, Whitney and I have met and we feel like this process is moving so slow. And like when we have one available unit sitting, we're like banging our heads, how can we get someone in there? But last week we met with one of the national individuals from Built for Zero who has been like, you all are doing such a great job. We're looking at best practices across the nation. And not to say that it's all worked out. I think as a community, we sometimes don't celebrate the successes. So when we're looking at, oh, people aren't getting housed, we don't have units, I just want us to be challenged around the things that are working and how are we building upon those successes and taking notes, because what we do know, housing first works, but we also need those supportive services. And so we also have, of course, our substance use disorder, and we also have attached medical care. Many of you may know also our criteria has changed. Before, veterans had to qualify for VA health care. Recent legislation has changed that to where now more of our humanitarian veterans are being served. And so we have relied upon our community partners, which have been awesome, to get those veterans triaged through other services. And so I know that oftentimes that's a population we have not acknowledged as well, but we continue to move work forward and just wanted to share that success. And so, Sally, did I cover everything?
Absolutely.
All right. And Sally has been awesome in terms of, because that's how the process has worked. So with that note and our story of success, I just want to thank you all. Thank you for your dynamic conversation and feedback. If you could see my paper up here, I have taken your notes because I do believe that much of what you have said is added value. And so we will continue to work on those things. And with that being said, I wish you all a great rest of your day, and we will adjourn at 9:57. And I will see you all next month on June, I forget what date, but you all know this, June 14th at 8:30, same place. Thank you all.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.